You're such an asshole.
How you kids doing? Asshole Consulting. A veteran rights. Disabled veteran combat medic and paratrooper of the 82nd Airborne. All right. I didn't wake up to the reality of the country I served for about 2 years after I separated. I came across your Western Men Stop Protecting Women video. I sent it to my father, a retired Air Force colonel, and despite the language, he fucking loved it. We both had the same concern and are ready for the answer either way. Question, what is the likelihood of another American Civil War, delusional socialists versus conservative realists that have a fuck ton of pissed off veterans and citizens who legally own guns and know how to use them, happening soon, and the outcome? And so I quote, and remember, if you're military, you get a discount. So I had to sit and think about it, and it's going to be not disheartening, but very deflating. I don't think there'll be a civil war because we do have a democracy and we do have an election, and we actually do have it pretty good here. It's a very safe country. I want to say we have on the lower side of taxes for the developed world, but the developed world has very high taxes, although we didn't get to be the developed world with high taxes. But we also have an insane amount of spending, which makes the taxation level moot because inevitably that debt has to be paid back with more taxes. But it's for all the complaints and problems that you have here in the United States, and they are real and they are legitimate. It's not bad enough to start a war. It's not bad enough to go and kill your neighbor. People are employed, and when given the choice between I'm going to go and you're not under threat, your livelihood is not under, your safety is not under threat, it's like, shit, I got to pay 45% in taxes. Well, I guess I might as well do it. And I think cost of other things, if you're smart enough to avoid stupid college degrees, stupid debts, you can, yes, you're taxed at a 45, 50, some places 60% tax rate, but the remaining half of your income roughly will afford you a very nice life, and you're not starving. You need to be really threatened, something really violating has to happen, and that is not happening yet. And I think the leftists are smart enough not to try that. So they'll be cowardly, they'll be spineless, and they'll say things like white privilege or male privilege, or they'll play the victim game, but they ain't dare gonna come up to you and try and steal your money. They're not dare. They'll do it through voting, yeah, but they're not going to threaten your life. Where I would think, where you're forced to bake a dildo cake like they were over in Colorado, the gay code, then I'd be worried about that. But in mass, like one group of people really trying to screw over another group of people in a direct and confrontational manner is not going to happen. They will go through it. The other reason I don't think a civil war is going to happen is because the war is happening slowly and through demographical change. And when I say demographical change, I don't just mean racial composition, although that certainly is a part of it, and not even really race as much as immigrants coming in who vote Democrat, non-white, non-Asian races breeding more than Asian and white races, and assuming the past holds up into the future, racial groups that aren't white or Asian tend to, not guaranteed to, but tend to vote socialism more than freedom. So as a population, whites are projected to be less than half the population in 2047. And again, just because you're white doesn't mean you vote Republican. But assuming those demographic trends hold and the demographic voting patterns hold, the influx of immigrants from second and third world countries and the native population of non-whites breeding more, you're going to basically the Democrats are going to outbreed the conservatives. The socialists are going to outbreed the capitalists. So you have that there. And then, again, it's not all demographics. The government and media, but particularly the government, has been brilliant in getting every generation indoctrinated, basically from the baby boomers on, certainly Gen X on, into voting left, at least for the first half of their voting life. So if you look at who are the most ardent social justice warriors, it's young white people. They've been fully indoctrinated. So it's not even a component of like, well, look at race, those people over there from this country. Certainly that's a part of it, but the most ardent psycho leftists are whites, right? The vast majority of your social justice, your social justice warriors are whites. The classic example is Black Lives Matter, and here you have a bunch of white people. There was a picture of Black Lives Matter group, I think, went to Minnesota State Fair, and the majority of them were white. Like, what the hell? So you cannot discount the $1 trillion a year that is spent under the guise of educating kids, and there is some education that does occur, but most of it is indoctrination and brainwashing, convincing young people of all racial backgrounds to vote Democrat, but particularly white people who come from, I'll admit in this one capacity, they do come from richer, more privileged backgrounds, and that's where the worst people come, is when they got all the money in the world and they don't have to work, and then they just go on a crusade. Though that's why they're the most ardent. That's where your most radical leftists tend to be white. But my point is, over the next generation, it depends on how old you are. I'm going to assume you're younger than me. You will see it where the left simply outbreeds the right, and it'll be a very peaceful takeover. Texas will go Texas will go blue inevitably. You'll see demographics come to turn people into a bunch of socialist voting morons, and we'll have, with the demographic composition of Brazil, in due time, might be 50 years, you're going to have just a bunch of morons voting in socialism because that works so well and they're too dumb to view history. What I also fear is the Democrat Party will inevitably win long term if you look at the history of Mexican politics, recent history. Until, PNB, because there was the People's Revolutionary Party, the PRI had been in power for 70 or 80 years. Because at first they were the Revolutionary People's Party and they fought for independence, blah, blah, blah. Well, then like every politically become corrupt, and the Mexican people just kept voting for them, although there may have been some corruption in Mexican politics, if you could believe it or not. And then, not Calderon, was it Vicente Fox? Atham, tell me about Mexican history. Right? I think he was the first one from the PNB or PBN to kick the PRI out. Kind of like, not too unlike the Communist Party, where for 70, 80 years, all it was the Communist Party in Soviet Russia. Although at least Mexico there was alternative parties that could have ran. And I think that'll happen in the United States. The Democrat Party will be the one party, and there will be the minority party. And it will take about a generation or two generations, a full generation of people, 2, maybe even 3 generations of people born over the course of 70 years. Where, I always get a kick out of Latin American countries where every once in a while they're like, hey, wait a second. Like Argentina and Brazil are perfect examples. Like, this socialism stuff doesn't work. And then they wake up, and in the case of Argentina, I don't know who it was they voted in, but they got rid of that Kirchner and they kicked that bitch of a woman they had to the curb. Brazil, they elected whatever his name, and even Mexico got Fox and Calderon. They voted in. But what will happen is if you get too socialist, you might have a dictator take over like Hugo Chavez, and you never get to vote again. And so I think there won't be a civil war, and I do believe the left will win because it's just human nature, and also mathematics of demographics, people who are going to be born into the future of the United States, the outstanding job the government does in brainwashing and convincing young people, regardless of race, to be leftist. And I think this is kind of like the last hurrah with Trump in office. Unless he actually did put a stop to immigration. But no, there won't be a civil war. It will slowly eat away, and America will fizzle out, is what it will. Oh, there'll still be a United States, but it'll be about as exciting and accomplished and historically noteworthy as Brazil. It'll be a irrelevant country. So, all right, that's it. Questions, answers, assholeconsulting.com. We'll see you all later. Toodles.